to our first event in 2021. And I see that people are still joining us. We have a great attendance today, 77 people. That's really great. Um, anyway, hope you're all staying safe and warm in the midst of all that we're going through. We're really glad that you could all unplug from your day for a bit and join us today. In fact, today's event marks a special day for us because for the first time, we're truly going global and we have a global audience. And we have people joining in not only from Chicago, but also from our sister meetup in Vancouver in Canada. So big shout out to you guys in Vancouver and big welcome to you all. As many of you may know, UXD Chicago, UX Vancouver, and many other meetups are run by our parent brand called PMX, as in product, marketing, and UX. And our focus through all these meetups has always been not only to bring to you forward-thinking ideas, but also do it at a global scale. And today's talk is no exception. And as many of you may know, today's talk is presented by Chris. He currently serves as the Director of Product Insights and Design at Kazoo here in Chicago. And as you can see, he's uniquely positioned to talk about not just design, but also product management. And in today's talk, Chris will be sharing with us how to leverage UX research with the product management process. And I'm sure Chris has more to add to that as well, and he'll be introducing himself very soon. And just a little bit more about Chris. He's a part of our leadership team at PMX, and he is someone that I've worked with for so many years, and I really respect and admire his passion for both design and leadership. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. And today we're also joined by Donna, who is also part of our leadership team at PMX. And she will be taking up Q&A after Chris's talk. So if you have any questions, feel free to continue to type them. And Donna will take them up after Chris's presentation. And so without further ado, Chris, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rishi. I'm going to get my screen share going here and we can get started. So welcome everybody. Today we are talking about aligning the UX research, always do that, with the product management process. Basically, the agenda is I'm going to talk a little bit about the company I work at, Kazoo. I'm going to take you through kind of the strategy and the state of our business at the time that we did this work. I'm going to do a deep dive into how we conducted our research. I'm going to walk you through our product and UX journey map. And then I'm going to talk about the impact this has had on our company. So a little bit about me, as Rishi mentioned, I'm the Director of Product Insights and Design at Kazoo. That means I'm a player coach on Kazoo's product design team, but I'm also product manager for insights and analytics. I'm a lover of all food in burrito format. I'm a family guy. I've got a bunch of kids. I live through them, not through sports, but through Lego. And I'm a recovering guitar player also. But less on me, let's talk about where I work, Kazoo. So we believe every company, regardless of size or industry, should strive to create a workplace where all employees can thrive. And in this new age of work, we've got a 5-part framework that creates an engagement flywheel that's the key to creating engaged employees, no matter where they or you are working. And that quote's directly from our marketing team. But in a nutshell, our platform combines performance management tools, things like goals, OKRs, feedback, check-ins, one-on-ones with a recognition and rewards platform. So all those things really combine to create an all-in-one employee experience platform. And what I strongly believe is that design and research sit in the heart of any organization. Basically, we've got the ability to come in and impact and add value to any part of the organization. And it's not so much about what you're doing as a designer on your day-to-day, it's really about who are you doing it with. you really need to align yourself with your key stakeholders across all these different departments. And you can then share and conduct research with them, create design assets for them, work through methodologies. And this really helps you shape your products so that people want to use them. So this is just a brief, my philosophy on design before we get started. And this kind of leads into the strategy of where we're at with our project. So we're going to travel back in time to April of 2020. And I want to focus a little bit on where Kazoo was at that time and how we developed our strategy to improve. So we had a brand new product team. I'd only been at Kazoo for 1 year at this point, and we had really smart people that had been promoted from all other areas of the organization into product. We had a team with really deep knowledge around our software and our customers, but we were lacking a clearly defined process for building software. And to top that off, we're in the middle of trying to launch a fully overhauled user experience of our platform. And what this was doing was bringing together all the functionality that we had from both that recognition and reward side and that performance management side combined into a new UI. Previous to this, we'd been two companies, and our parent company, Vista, bought two separate companies, smashed them together. And we've been working really diligently to create a unified user experience around this. So basically at this point, we were ripe for disruption. We had a fresh team. We were in the middle of a large transition, and we really knew that we had things we could improve and do better. Our new team motto was just start. And that was applied to everything we did: workflows, communication, teamwork. And leadership set new OKRs to align the product team towards meeting our new delivery goals. So as I mentioned earlier, a large part of what Kazoo software does is, and our internal culture, is it's really around goal setting. So this is a screenshot from Kazoo's goal module. For each goal, there's measurable results. And we use this tool to track company, department, and individual goals each quarter. And if you're familiar with OKRs, we have a clear objective here of no surprises. And that the key results of that are aligned here and scoped by completion and due dates. So this is where our product leaders set the goal of no surprises. And we had this unified approach to come up with to achieve these results. And I raised my hand for this journey mapping for product idea to delivery with set checkpoints for stakeholders. So at this point, I raised my hand to do this part. And I want to dive into the research of how we put our journey map together. This is a quote from Disney: "Someone always owns the moment." And Disney uses this in their approach to just about everything. And it shows because Disney realizes that the consistency of great moments create great experiences create happy memories, and creating happy memories is how Disney measures success. And I like to look at this as the same principle applies to delivering software. So when we look at how we deliver software at Kazoo, we take all our projects through these steps of strategy, research, refinement, planning, execution, and launch. And we have this process, and it had a checklist associated with it. And the checklist was detailed. But what the checklist didn't do is it didn't layer the independencies of the other teams, our stakeholders, and our customers. So step one was migrating what was in our checklist into the new journey map format. And what we were really trying to do was to capture how that work was done at that time. So basically just taking that checklist that we had and dropping it straight in. And then the next phase of the work that we did was we wanted to deeply include our user research process. So how does user research, product design, user testing, how does that feed into this journey map? And at this point, we were moving away from what was our existing practice, and we were moving towards this layered approach of where we wanted to be. And then I kept going with this, and I ended up mapping out this flow across almost all the different steps within our workflow. And this got us to basically the first draft in our process. And at this point, it was time to go in and set up interviews to validate and test with the team. So the great thing about creating these journey maps is it basically includes all the stakeholders that you need to interview. The real key here is determining like what's the right order to talk to the stakeholders. How do you want to layer their feedback in? And what's the best way to record all of the details that you want to do to refine and improve these journey maps. And the process that we used at Kazoo is we started and ended with our product team. So I went to our product team first. I talked to all of them. And then I went through all our different other stakeholder teams of customer success and sales and engineering, and worked with all of them to make sure that their voices were heard in the process. And this is kind of what that mess looked like. So this is a really early iteration of our launch workflow. And here you can see a large collection of notes, questions, and individual responses to the sections within the journey map. And so what I would do is I would come in and I would document the key feedback from here at CS documentation team and the responses. And I would keep going, and I was working towards getting that consolidated approach. And with the tool I was using here, I basically consolidated all of my note-taking, responses, pain points into the same place that I was actually building out the journey map. And what made this really effective was that I was able to keep all of the edits and the information within the context of the journey map itself. This is another quote I love. This is by Edward Tufte. "Design isn't crafting a beautiful textured button with a breathtaking animation. It's figuring out if there's a way to get rid of the button altogether." Edward's written some of my favorite design books, like The Visual Display of Quantitative Information and Envisioning Information. And so much about what we do is not about what we decide to include, but it's also what we don't include. And this was important with the journey map as well. The purpose of what we were crafting was the broad strokes that could inform the entire company. So this screenshot here showed a methodology I used within the interview process as well. When there's a certain step within the journey map that was causing a lot of contention or had a lot of disagreeing opinions, what I would do was I flagged that step out in red. And I made sure that within every interview, whoever I talked to, I always discussed this step. And what this allowed me to do is collect a large range of varying viewpoints on some of the hardest topics within our journey map. And as the conversations and the interviews progressed, I was typically able to move towards consensus with the most troubling spots within a workflow. The other thing that's really important is that once you finalized your workflow, that you're doubling back to talk to everybody again. So I went back to all my key stakeholders after I completed everything to validate my final results before I distributed this out to our entire team. And this is where I typically would go from like a one-on-one interview session where I'd be talking, when I was doing the initial interviews, I really focused on like that one-on-one person, and they would always open up to me. They'd feel good about being able to share privately how they felt about certain areas of the step if there was a pain point. But what was really good about validation is I'd usually do that in a group setting. And doing that validation in a group setting is really good for gaining consensus on those final workflows. So having that nice mix of like that one-on-one time so people can feel like they're heard, and that group time so you can get a group's approval to move forward. So now what I want to do is kind of jump in and talk through our product journey map. And what I've got here is if anybody wants to follow along, if anybody wants to take this journey map and copy it and use it for themselves, I'm sharing that here. I'll also share the link in the chat at the end of this, or pop it in our different chats and Meetup, so you can all have access to it. But feel free to grab the bit.ly link, or grab a link here on your phone and follow along. So I'm going to drop out of my share here, and we're going to pop in to the journey map itself. Just give me 1 second to bring that up. So what I have here is this spot is the key. Hold on, I'm going to do this differently. So this right here is kind of the 1,000-foot view of our journey map. And what I've done is I've basically pulled out who our primary and secondary players are across the whole process. And it allows us to get a quick grasp of when different people come in and out of being a player. So we can see here very easily how all the teams are interacting throughout the different steps. But then what we can do, the other thing that I like to show here is that, within journey maps, I've also color coded a lot of the different pieces. So where you see blue, that's where I'm calling out that it's a key meeting. Green is an estimation. Purple is a key deliverable that's going to be created as part of that. And then when you see orange or red, that was a topic there where I needed clarity. The other thing that if you've done journey mapping or service design is I've split some of these workflows out between what is a back of the house activity. So like that, what our internal teams are doing, and the front of the house. So what our external facing teams are doing. So the way I'm dividing that here is like our back of the house teams might be like product management and engineering and designers, and our front of the house teams would be more like our customer success team and our sales team. I know that's a little, things can go both ways. Like obviously our design team is out interviewing and talking to clients, but it's a good way to kind of differentiate within our workflows. So this is the first section of strategy. And at Kazoo, our strategy revolves around basically bringing a problem to the table. And here I'm calling out specifically like our product team is doing this, but I think that that's a little short-sighted. I think anybody can bring a problem to the table. But what we do is after that problem is brought to the table, a member of our product team will create a one-pager. And that one-pager outlines our project goals, strategy, and business value. And from there, what they can do is they can collect and connect with our product marketing team on competitive research. And they can also go into Jira and they can start doing some of the work there to prep the team for this work. So this is our strategy process. And out of strategy, we have this one pager that's framing the problem and some potential approaches to solve it. From there, we jump into, oh, I forgot about this. There's other ways to think about these things too. So we also think about project size. And this is something our marketing team uses to determine product size, whether we're going to have a reactive or a proactive communication. And when we're thinking about our strategy too, we also want to think about the project size. So how much work should we be putting into this process to get results? And in the whimsical view that I shared, I break things down by project size. But for the purposes of our talk today, I'm really going to only be taking us through like the really large size projects. And this is how our marketing team thinks about it. But basically what we can see here is our large process has a very detailed workflow. Medium projects, we can take some of those steps out. Small projects, we can take even more of those steps out. And what that allows us to do is like really kind of t-shirt size of projects, so we know how much engineering resource time, design resource time we should be spending on something. So we're focusing on the large today. This is another quote I love. The first step in exceeding your customers' expectations is to know those expectations. Roy H. Williams has written some really great advertising books, but this really leads into a really important part of the process for me, which is research. So within our research process, we start that off with a kickoff conversation between our team leads. And at Kazoo, that's the product designer, the product manager, and the engineering lead. They are the key stakeholder team that's going to kick off any project. Um, and what you really do in this kickoff conversation is you can get together, you whiteboard, you discuss potential solutions, your workflow, the technology you're going to use, and it's going to set the pace for the rest of the research. From here, our design team can come in and start conducting internal stakeholder interviews. They can map out potential features, problem statements, pain points, determine what those high value output items are going to be. And if there's any technical-led research that needs to happen, do we need to get our architecture team involved? Is this going to use some sort of new technology? That's the technically led research that can occur at the same time. From there, once we've really framed those problems, we can start our wireframing process. Within that, the product designers can be journey mapping. They can be collecting examples of competitive and comparative solutions. They can be doing external client interviews and surveys, and they'll work with our insights team to come up with any workflows there. And they're mapping out potential feature delivery of this project as well. And at the same time that we're doing these wireframes, we're also going to be reaching out to our stakeholder team to do those surveys and interviews. We're going to be reaching out to our customers to validate our designs, to A/B test our wireframes. And we're coming up with what this project could be. We're still very much in the research phase. We're still in a low fidelity state of design, but we're building towards what that ideal solution is going to look like. From there, what we do is we will be developing a pitch deck for the project, and that's going to have all of that relevant strategy and research details included. So, and then what we do is we take this pitch deck that we've put together that includes our wireframes, our strategy, our research, and we do an executive review meeting. And what this really helps us to do is to take all this effort, and it forces us to frame that into a solution that we then have to pitch out. And the executive team can review that, they can provide feedback, and they can change the course of what we're doing at that point. They can decide, is this a project that's going to warrant further development from the rest of our team? Or is this something that's maybe less important after we've done this research? From here, we can refine that work as needed and start to break that work out. But the research, what comes out of that is we've got high level functional requirements for a design. We can come up with sprint level estimates based on those requirements. And we're going to know what makes the project successful. What kind of engagement are we looking for? How is this going to impact sales, usage, ARR, and potential customers? And how are we going to drive competition in the marketplace with this? So we're really trying to determine, like, is this going to provide the revenue opportunity that we want it to for the business? Or is it going to grow our client base in the way we expect? And then we can come out of research and we can get into refinement. And this is if the project has been deemed to go forward. Now we have to take what is that low fidelity wireframe design and move that up to being a high fidelity design. So our working team, once again, that product designer, product manager, and engineering lead, we're going to get together again, and we're going to develop this list of open questions regarding the user experience and the required features necessary to deliver the project. And now our product designer can go in and writes the research validation protocol. They'll conduct user research, usability testing, and validation. And throughout all this, the goal is to continually refine those wireframes and start to move that up into high fidelity designs and prototypes. Simultaneously, we've got our product managers and product owners and our engineering leads working together to do any of the remaining technically led research and planning we need to do to determine, like, how are we actually going to build this feature out. From here, we really have a very clear picture of what that end result should look like. And we can also flight that work out. So what is an MVP piece of functionality? What is like a V1, V2 piece of functionality? And we can weight all that. We can affinity map those features out. We can add value to them. We've done that in our research too at this point. So we really know like what's the most important thing of this product that we're about to build that we're bringing to our audience. We review our defined scope, solidify the points estimates. And here, once again, we've got another executive review meeting. So we're basically now doing a project proposal. We've got the full scope of work done. We know we can get very clear estimates from our engineering team on like the amount of effort it's going to take to build this, the cost it's going to take to build this. And we can once again share that with our team. And here we've got the outcomes of this are high resolution final design. We've got captured all the states of our work, 0 states, error states, all our inputs, all our views across our different personas, the insights we want to do. We can put together a high resolution click-through prototype, and we can detail all that work out, share it with the rest of the company. We know what we're going to build. We know how long it's going to take, and we get it out there. So we come out of our refinement with that research, validating our designs, our high resolution designs, and we've got our go-to-market strategy ready to go. This is another quote I love is 60% of customers are willing to pay more for a better experience. So the real reason we're diving into all of this work and pre-planning all this research is because this is our ultimate goal. We want our users to love the software. We want them to have the better experience. And we want to design it in a way where ultimately we can hopefully make more money off of them. From here, we get into planning, and I'm going to kind of breeze over these because these are really more of the engineering centric parts of the workflow. But basically, this is when our engineering team is taking out those sprint level epic pieces of work, and they are reviewing that with the team. We're talking through with our entire Scrum team of like what the scope of the work is, how the designs work. And then the other piece we're doing is we're helping them get to those final JIRA stories or those final tasks that they can do to really plan out that work in a detailed way. So they can groom it, give it its values, and get those prioritized in our sprints and backlogs. And then here we've got our execution part of the journey. There's a lot of ways to frame the execution part of the journey, and you'll see that in the whimsical view I shared. This is how we view the journey of a single ticket, of it starting with an engineer doing the work, a designer reviewing their tasks, them going through code review, QA, acceptance, and having that work actually merged into our code base. And then the last piece of this is how we think about launch. So within our process, we were having issues prior to this where we were releasing buggy software out. So what really came out of the research when I was looking at our launch workflow was that we needed a spot in for hardening. And we're doing that now by phasing out our launch workflow where we've got an internal alpha, a demo and beta release, and then only after that, we'll be doing a general access release. So we get to a code complete stage, all the work is done, we can start our demo and training sessions with our internal teams. Within that internal release, we can start a hardening process. So Kazoo is doing dog fooding in the new feature. We like to call it drinking our own champagne, and we launch it internally to our own users. We use our software a ton at our company. We can enable Pendo tracking. Our CS team can set up their knowledge base and onboarding. Marketing materials can be finalized with our final designs. Our sales team can then come in and get all the new seed data they need to for the new feature so their demo environments are set up right. And this gives our QA team time to test this in a live production environment with our real users at the helm. We can also build out that right profile of beta customers at this point. Who do we want to give this to first? Who needs this feature the most? Who's going to give us the best feedback on it? From there, we get this out to beta. We can launch our sales and marketing material ahead of this going to GA. Our sales team can start demoing it in the platform at this point. And then we can start doing our user acceptance testing. So now that we've got this live in real customers' hands, our designers can come in once again and get that validation, that final look with customers is this working for you? Is it doing what you expected? And then we as a team have this discussion like, is this ready to launch out? And then we can put out our general access release. All the public marketing materials are available. Everybody's out promoting the new feature. And then what we're really focused on after this is the phase where we still need to put in some work, is really this post-launch phase. So how are we tracking our usage metrics moving forward? How are we tracking engagement with our marketing materials? How's our sales team tracking wins and losses based on selling this new feature? So that was kind of the outcome of all that journey mapping work and coming up with the solidified process for the team. Now, the process of the executive reviews, just like the journey map and any of the stuff I showed, like this wasn't something that I did. This is something that we all did as a group together. And the work that we put together into this journey map is everybody's hard work. We all iterated, improved, and reflected, and we're honest with ourselves about our shortcomings and collecting real feedback. And I don't want to say this is something I did myself, because it's something that we really did as a team. And a real key part of this like learning and growth process was those executive review steps that I shared with you. And these really provided the team a key spot to focus and provide an in-flight delivery of where we're at within our research and refinement phase. And basically, we continually updated our format, shared slide decks amongst our product team and our designers, and we worked together to really change how we were doing these executive reviews over the course of the year. And eventually, this has led to us sharing these executive reviews as part of all hands meetings, as part of lunch and learns. And it went from something that was just being like an ancillary process between our product team and our executive team to being something that ended up getting shared across our entire company. So within this, you can see on the left here, this is something one of my designers, Kelly, put together. It's a way that we looked at like how we were prioritizing features within the executive reviews. And that bullet list shared here is just some of the details that we include in these executive reviews, really talking about our strategy, our research, our objectives, how we frame our key problems and our key findings. We pull in our user quotes, our design reviews, key decisions we made, and then really how we want to build this out and go about making next steps. And after a year of doing these executive reviews, I got this quote from my CEO, best executive review yet, no specific comments that I can think of on how to improve. We developed this where we had this clear outline and story that we wanted to present, and we were effective in walking through all these use cases, and it got noticed across the company. This is from one of our product managers. As our process has evolved and we have leaned more on research, I find myself having better tools and better data to guide my decision-making as a product manager. There's less guesswork and a clear path to success. The outcome of putting together the journey map, where we built in a very robust research process, is having dramatic effects on the business and on our team. Like everybody is really seeing the value that all the research and the refinement work and the user testing is bringing to the table. This is from our VP head of product. The process work has resulted in a focus on increased time for research, refinement, and planning, leading to better product execution. This is once again like just framing that piece where like the more time that we've been given to put into the research, the better the outcomes have become. And I'm going to paraphrase Ryan here. Basically, the deep preparation has had a huge impact on delivery as well. Ryan's one of the lead engineers on one of our Scrum teams. And basically, this was one of the first teams that was able to adopt work that had gone through that full process. And what we've seen is that their team velocity, the tickets and points achieved on a sprint over sprint basis, it has really been exceptional compared to the other teams. And it's setting a standard for engineering at Kazoo. So because we've been able to go through the research, we've figured out all the corner cases, we know where all the hiccups in the work are, the work is incredibly detailed by the time it gets to the design, they can just execute at a speed that they haven't been able to execute at before. So this kind of leads me back here. McKinsey put out a paper a few years ago called The Business Value of Design. And they stated that design is more than a feeling, it's a CEO level priority for growth and long-term performance. And ultimately, this is what we do as research and product designers, whether we're designing software, a workflow, an app, a button, or in this case, a journey map, we should be collecting and optimizing the needs of our users into the necessary steps to create success. And if you want design to have a seat at the table in your organization, you need to be able to show them the impact you can make working with your peers and having success. Design thinking and applying your research techniques can be used across multiple business problems and can have a very deep impact on your company. That's it for me. Thank you all so much for your time today. I'd love to open it up for some questions. If anybody's got some questions, please feel free to type them into the chat or yeah. Okay, so I see a question here. What tool did you use for the journey mapping that integrated all of your notes? So the tool we use is called Whimsical. I'll pull that up so we can see it. And Whimsical, it's a lot like Miro. Basically, what it provides is a methodology so that you can do flowcharts, wireframes, sticky notes, and mind maps. So like as I was doing this process, basically I could come in and I could add notes right below. Let me see if I can find a different version of this where I've got some of those details put in. So like here we can see, here's that version I showed of the launch journey map, where I was basically showing the design. And as I was showing it, I was basically working in and taking my notes live in real time while I was building these designs out. All right. Donna, do you want to facilitate some of these this question asking for me?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll read this out loud to you, Chris, and I'll also post them to you directly, just in case. So the one of the questions is, what were some of the tougher conversations you had while reaching consensus with the red items?
Yeah, most of the conversations were around when estimations would be happening from the engineering team. The engineering team did not want to commit to sizing projects at earlier phases in the process. But the way Kazoo's business works is we try to do long-term roadmap planning where we've got like a fuzzy idea of what we want to do within a year, of a good idea of what we want to do within 6 months, and a crystal clear idea of what we want to do in 3 months. And it's really hard for an engineering team to commit and say like, hey, I think this is 3 months of work or 4 months of work or 5 sprints of work when they're only looking at initial wireframes. But it's really hard to do good roadmap planning unless you know general sizes of projects. So a lot of the problems were there. And then it was really, you know, some of the other problems was just getting buy-in from across different product managers that like to work differently. Some leaning more heavily on engineering than design for their workflows, that the research process was important.
Great. So next question I have here for you, Chris, is how does prioritization and addressing backlogs work in this model?
Sure. So let me share again. So basically what we've got here, zoom out. So beyond strategy, where we are thinking about like how requests flow into our workflow. So strategy is one way that problems come to the table. We also have other methodologies where things come to the table, which could be customer requests or bugs. So within each of these workflows, we have our own methodologies for items getting into the roadmap. We try to leave about 10 to 15% of all our web team's bandwidth specifically for customer requests, which is a pool of work that our customer success team organizes. And then our bugs get brought in based on severity and how they get scored and flagged within the system. Is it a high priority item or a low priority item that might not get addressed?
Awesome. Okay, next question. How greatly do you think that going remote has affected your inter-team management, and how's your efficiency changed at all for the better or worse?
Sure. So Kazoo is, when I started, we were already a split team. So half the team was in Austin, half the team was in Chicago, and that was at the entire company. The product team specifically, my manager and all my direct reports were in Austin when I was in Chicago. So pre-COVID, I was already very used to remotely working with my design team and with the other product managers. So I didn't notice that much of a shift. You know, as much as I miss like eating lunch in Chicago and going out for drinks after work, it has been more the pain point than the remote work side of things. What was the second part of that question, Donna?
Oh, the second part was how has your efficiency changed at all has it changed for the better or for worse?
Yeah, I definitely think there are some pieces of brainstorming and whiteboarding that is not as easy to do remote. Using tools like Whimsical as like our virtual whiteboarding tool has helped with that a little bit. We were full on Figma prior to this, so like the entire team was already collaborating on our design library and design system and all our files there. But otherwise, I haven't seen a huge impact in productivity or efficiency, honestly.
Cool. We have someone saying, thanks, Chris. How are you using this journey map for each of the projects? And what happens if there's a delay in one of the milestones?
Sure. So what I've seen more, we try to use this for our big projects. So a lot of what we've been doing is rebuilding our performance management tools from the ground up. So within this last year, we have rebuilt and designed goals, our one-on-one meeting tool, our feedback tool, our talent assessment tool, and all of these have gotten to go through this whole process. And I don't know if your organization is like mine, but what I've seen is like, it's not been my team that's been getting delayed. It's that other priorities have cropped up on the engineering side, or projects have taken longer to deliver than were initially thought. So like for some of these, we actually ended up with more time to do research and design refinement just because the engineering kept getting pushed back. So I haven't seen us really miss milestones. It's been more that we've actually ended up with more time than expected to do some of this work, which has been really excellent. But that doesn't mean that we still aren't agile. So we're still a Scrum team. We still have, you know, as things are getting built, like as much as we try to catch every edge case, we don't. So like there is still work that is happening in flight on some of these projects. if the data structure doesn't necessarily match our designs, or we missed an edge case or some other piece of work, we're always happy to go in and be agile with our team and help them come up with solutions on the fly.
Great. Next question. There's two in this one. Is the discovery phase part of the strategy roadmap? And it looks like the problems are defined in the strategy phase. Just thinking how are problems brought to the table? Is it mainly based on quantitative data?
Sure. I'm going to share again. I'm going to pull up something else from Whimsical if I can find it really quick. So let me see here. So part of what we're doing as part of the research phase is framing problems, right? So like as I would conduct the user research, what I'm trying to do is to surface those pain points, right? So we're looking at rebuilding our email service. As I'm interviewing our stakeholders and customers, what I'm trying to do is frame pain points. And then after I've got those pain points framed, I can then affinity map them to determine which are the most valuable pain points to solve. So like that initial strategy phase where we're bringing a problem to the table. In this case, that problem is our email service sucks. Like we need to fix it. It's built on bankrupt technology. It doesn't work across our whole new platform. We need to fix it. So that was the problem statement that was brought to me. My job then as the researcher is to go out and talk to our users and find out what else is wrong with it. So I break that down into pain points and open questions I have. Those pain points and open questions start to turn into different features that we could use to address those. And then we can prioritize that work with our product team. Like what's the most important thing to solve here?
Okay. So one of our meetup folks here says, thank you so much. This was a great project and presentation. I would like to know what kind of issues your team encountered with working with stakeholders, if any. And I am curious to know how you handled it. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So some stakeholders are more likely, you know, depending on your organization, it's who's the loudest voice in the room. And it's really about, it's always about like balancing those needs. So we have, you know, our product team has our North Star and our guidelines that we use to, you know, frame and deliver our solutions around. We've got a whole bunch of tools that we use to, you know, do our road mapping and set our scopes of work. So, you know, the goal is that we're trying to solve the problems for our stakeholders. What our stakeholders don't always understand is that like the solution to their problem might not be something that they have necessarily considered. And that's what doing the research is about, and the iterating on the designs and the testing of the designs is to find that solution to the problem that's going to really solve the user the most. With our stakeholders internally, like, you know, it's all about, from my perspective, it's two pieces. It's like, what does our sales team need to sell and what's going to make them effective selling? And then what does our customer success team need to do to garner trust with the clients that we have and maintain those clients? So those teams have very distinct needs, and we're always trying to balance those with the new feature work and the new market share that we're trying to capture.
Great. And so we have one last question here, it seems. So how involved should designers be in understanding the macro level of the product roadmap?
I would say the more senior designer you are, the more you should try to understand that. You know, that's the real way to start to, you know, if you have ambition to move up in your role, like really understanding the key problems that are driving the business and how your work affects that, and how the work that other teams are doing layers into your work is only going to make you a more effective designer and problem solver for your organization.
And false alarm. We have another question here. So, which tools do you use to save research insights and communicate them to diverse audiences within the organization?
Yeah, that's really that executive review tool. That becomes like that inflection point where the highlights of the research end up, and those decks become invaluable when you're going back like to a project 6 months later, or a year later. Like, why did we make this decision? Why did we do these things? Like, that's where the summary point of the research is. Like, so if I conduct, let's say I go out and conduct 10 user interviews, I will have, 10 documents of user interviews. I will then comb through that, and then I'll have one document that's the output of that. And then the output of that might end up as like 1 or 2 slides in that executive research deck. So like I'm constantly trying to take the multitude of information that we get from conducting the research and like slowly thin it down to like, what is the most important pain point or problem that we're trying to solve? How do we frame that right to the audiences that need to digest that material?